out there and you just got to get it done. Ready or not, here I come. Nobody knows what I go through. Wish you could put yourself inside my shoes. I got friends that depend on me, so I can't give up. Terrible.
You once told Rolling Stone that
T-shirt with an old looking ship from the Civil War. Eric can tell that. Jimmy, this your jam. I hear it. Woo! Let's turn up. Yeah. Hey, but the Jimmy said yes, it was so fun. Women, beautiful
Oh. Hold on, everybody. Minor technical thing. Go. All right, everybody. I believe we are live, Tom.
All right. Welcome to the Tom and Dave Show. It is Tom and Dave Days, Wednesday, March 17th. Dave, it is St. Patrick's Day. So a happy St. Patrick's Day to you. A happy Terry Rozier's birthday to him, and also to you if you are celebrating.
He turned 27 today.
Wow.
That was both a little bit older and younger than I was expecting, because that's not that much older than me. So I was kind of weirded out by that.
That makes sense.
But happy St. Patrick's Day to you, Tom. I know that you today have a bit of a St. Patrick's Day intro you wanted to do.
Yes. So for those of you that do not know, a peek behind the curtain into the backstory of Tom, I did spend the first semester of my college career in Ireland. It was not an accident. The university that Dave and I attended together at the same time, they do this fun program where they send certain freshmen abroad so as to not have to count them in their accepted class rankings, I believe.
It is entirely a scheme to
Yes.
to make the acceptance rate look lower.
It is. It's like, yeah, well, we got these applicants and they're going to be coming here next year. But for the first semester, they're technically students in another state at a different college. And then that school is going to send them across the ocean so that nobody can follow this paper trail.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I had to track down a transcript from that semester a few months ago. And it was a hard paper trail to follow because the university that they sent me to in the time that I was at college, that university lost its accreditation with Northeastern. And they ended their relationship.
Oh no!
Shout out to Dublin Business School.
Were you able to get it?
Yeah, I had to go through. So Northeastern routed all of I think the entire program at 7 different destinations was routed through Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Okay.
And so for a semester, I was technically a Marist student, and Marist was able to get it for me. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I had the hard copy that they gave me 4 years ago, just in my parents' basement, and I just scanned it.
Okay.
But I went to Ireland once.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a few months there.
So Tom's kind of an expert.
You could say that, yes. I saw a lot of what there is to see. And in honor of a very Irish holiday, live on the stream tonight, I'm going to be pouring a Guinness correctly into a pint glass. Fun story, actually. This pint glass, I did accidentally walk out of a bar with when I was 18 years old.
What bar?
I say accidentally, and if I'm being quite honest, this one was not an accident. But the one that I took on my 18th birthday, when I was legally allowed to start drinking in Ireland, that one was an accident, and it did have the Guinness logo on it. So that one was, a bigger deal. But then I was like, okay, you know what? I want a souvenir here. And so one night I worked up some courage and I got to it. But in any event, we're going to be pouring the pint. So
can you walk me through your strategy here?
Well, yes. So as an American who spent any time in Ireland, I did go to the Guinness brewery, and with the price of admission, you do get a free pint of Guinness at the top of the building. Now, they do also instruct you how to, they do instruct you how to pour it. So basically, what I'm going to do is, first of all, and I need everybody to lean in real close to their speakers for this one. If you have headphones in, it doesn't apply to you. But we're going to crack it. You hear that?
Mm-hmm. Heard it nice and clear.
Yep, that's Guinness right there. So now what you do is they tell you to pour it on a little bit of a tilt so that you get some foam building up.
Right.
And then what you want to do is you want to stop halfway up. Now, they're not going to tell you this at the Guinness Brewery, but my theory is that this is like a very Irish ritual where we just let the beer sit and think about what it did. Like there's a shame aspect to it where the beer is going to ultimately become penitent in the time that it sits and like builds up its foam and settles.
It's the beer. It's the beer acknowledging its Catholic guilt.
Yes, exactly. The beer has original sin, basically. Now, we're going to let that sit for a few seconds. And while we let it sit, for a time long enough that coming back to this beer pouring bit will be a non sequitur, Dave, the Heat traded for Trevor Ariza.
Yes. I'll do. I won't make this too long. I'm very. I can see no way that this trade is a negative. We traded a second-round pick, and Myers Leonard, a guy who was not going to play again for the team, who was injured for the season, who is out for disciplinary conduct for making some racist comments on his live streams. We somehow traded that guy and a 2027 pick for someone who will actually play and be probably an important part of a playoff rotation.
Oh, yeah.
I think he fits pretty perfectly into the team, honestly. Last year, Ariza shot 40% from three with the Blazers. There's only like 20 games, but still, it shows he's, still can be a reliable shooter. Slightly worried that he hasn't played in a full calendar year at this point.
That one is tough.
But that's actually a very similar situation to when we got Andre Iguodala last season. Weird parallels here of us picking up guys who refuse to play for the bad teams that they're on. But I'm very excited for it, and I think there's a lot of fun lineups you could do here. And I would really... I'm not sure how great this lineup would be on offense, but I would really love to see Spo throw out the lineup of Avery Bradley, Jimmy Butler, Andre Iguodala, Trevor Ariza, and Bam. Because that's 5 great defenders.
You're switching everything.
You can switch everything. I mean, maybe you don't switch with Bradley because he can't guard past the 2. He can guard the 1 and the 2, but you can switch 2 through 5.
Yes.
And then Bradley is, one of the better guard defenders. So
like of the defenders that you can't switch certain matchups with, he's a good one to have out there.
Yeah. So I'm very excited for that. I think the Heat over the last, I don't even know if it's still true, but over the last 15 or 16 games, I believe they have the second best defense in the NBA. Or I think it's in the last 17 games, they have the second best defense in the NBA.
Heat are getting spooky.
Yeah. And I mean, we just added another good defender. And a guy who can hit a threes at a much more reliable rate than Andre Iguodala or KZ Okpala, who have been playing that backup 4 role more recently.
I think another point, and I saw Nikias Duncan make this point on Twitter, he's probably like your innings eater for when you go up against a Kevin Durant.
Yes.
Where it's like, all right, we don't want Precious Achiuwa to have to guard Kevin Durant because he'll get eaten alive.
Oh, yeah.
A rookie getting eaten alive defensively is a very different prospect from like a 12, 13, like a really long tenured vet getting run off the court.
One of the most veteran guys in the league at this point. I think he's been in the league since 2008 or 2007.
I don't think I've ever heard the word veteran used like in a superlative form.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I've ever heard most veteran.
I mean, I guess the word there is more most tenured. Is the more correct word to use there.
I got what you were saying. I just thought it was a very funny combination of words.
But
now, before we continue with real basketball talk, Dave, the beer has settled. You're seeing a nice foam head up here, and you're seeing plenty of glass left, and you can't hear it, but there's plenty of beer left in here. So we're gonna tilt, and we're gonna pour a little more.
Can you raise your glass up so I can see the?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So we're pouring, and you can see it's going into the glass. And then as we get towards the top, we are going to tilt a little more, and we're going to level it off. And there we go. We have a pint.
That looks beautiful. I also have some beer here. I've got.
We doing beers on the stream?
Yeah. I've got a Flower Child IPA. Been having these for the last couple of weeks. I really enjoy them.
I will say, your beer, it's different from Guinness in that looking at it, I know it's a liquid.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think I've had a Guinness before.
It is like a, it's there. It's surprisingly, it looks like sludge. Like if you see it moving in the glass and like, because you can't see through it, you're like, oh yeah, that's like a wobbly topped solid. But it is in fact liquid. And I think we'll do a live taste test here.
This is very exciting.
It's not refreshing.
Okay, but
it's good, but it's not refreshing.
Is Guinness just? I mean, it's pretty similar to, or it's like more like the gold standard of like porters and stouts and things like that, right?
I would say so. Yes.
Yeah.
It's I'm not going to call it the champagne of stouts because there is only one beer that will ever be classified as champagne. And if you'll allow me for a moment, the one beer that will ever be classified as a champagne.
Do you have one ready?
Miller High Life. The champagne of beers, for which I have a T-shirt. Shout out to my friend Tess for getting me this in a Secret Santa that I did this year. But
that's a great shirt.
To all of our listeners, you have now seen the correct way to pour a pint of Guinness, and this is knowledge that will, you might be able to use it in a couple of years when you start a basketball channel with your friend and you're doing an episode on an Irish holiday of some sort. But otherwise, probably not going to come up. Now, Trevor Ariza.
You'll know if someone's doing it wrong, though. If you see someone, if you're having a beer with a friend and they pour it wrong, you will be able to address, directly talk to them about that and say, I know you poured that wrong.
And we at Tom and Dave are all about asserting some sort of superiority over your friends. That's why we do this, so that we can go and talk to people that we both know and say, oh, what'd you do on your channel today? And they usually don't have one. But Trevor Ariza.
That's a good point. Okay.
I think,
yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
The last Ariza thing I would say is just like, actually, I didn't have a point lined up there. No, I think he's exactly what I think the Heat have needed this year, at least in like a theoretical sense. Guy that can guard the 3, guard the 4, like switch off of it. I don't know what his shooting numbers are like because he has not played in a year.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's really been a calendar year with like
the last
shutdown, then the bubble that he didn't go into.
The last game he played was like, well, I mean the anniversary, the 1 year of the NBA getting shut down was a couple days ago, right?
Yeah.
It was on like one of those days because he didn't end up playing the bubble.
Yeah. Was he a Rocket before they shut down?
He was a Blazer. He was a Rocket at the beginning of the year.
Oh yeah.
Just to quickly go through, I find this very entertaining. Oh, also Trevor Ariza has been in the league since 2005.
That's like 16 years?
Yeah, and he started in the 2004-2005 season.
Oh, wow.
Tom, I want you very quickly to play the game of, can you name either how many teams he's been on and try to name them all? Or rather, I'll give you...
I'm probably going to lose.
I'll give you how many.
I'm going to guess 7.
It's 9.
9 teams.
Now 10.
Okay. I would like to take some guesses.
Okay.
He has been a Rocket, he has been a Blazer, he has been a Laker.
Yep.
He has been a Phoenix Sun.
Yep.
He has been Rockets, Blazers, Lakers, Suns. He has been a Chicago Bull.
No.
Damn it. Okay.
He's
been a Seattle Supersonic?
No, one of these you should get, but I understand why you don't get because it was when you were like 7.
Was he a Knick?
He was a Knick. He started his career on the Knicks.
Whoa.
He played his rookie year and half of his sophomore year on the Knicks, where he averaged around 5 points a game, but played a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that got away. You have to think. I mean, where would the Knicks be if they hadn't traded Trevor Ariza away?
So we got 3 left, or no, 4 left, and I'll be honest, they're tough ones.
He has been a Dallas Maverick.
Nope.
He's been a Wizard.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. He has been a Sacramento King.
Yep.
He
2
has
more.
been an Orlando Magician.
Yes. Whoa.
Ha! All right.
Final one. He was on this team from 2010 to 2012. He played a little over 100 games with them, averaged around 11 points a game.
I forgot there was a 9th team.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I thought I had gotten all 8.
I'll give you some players who were on this team. You have he on this team in 2010 to 2011. He played with Marco Bellinelli, Patrick Ewing Jr.
I didn't know there was a Patrick Ewing Jr.
I'll make this a little bit easier as it goes. Willie Green.
I remember Willie Green.
Emeka Okafor.
Was he a Charlotte Hornet?
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
actually, would he have been a Charlotte Bobcat?
No, he was a Hornet.
Okay.
He was a Hornet, and he played 1 season with Chris Paul, actually. So Reese has really been around. You can make an entire basketball team of all-star players, probably, that have played with him at this point.
I think the funniest part of that all-star team is that it would have Chris Paul and James Harden in the same backcourt again.
Yes, it would. And John Wall.
Oh, dear. Just a combustible bunch of human beings that I would love to watch together.
And now Jimmy Butler. So, yeah, I'm very excited about this trade. I have no idea when he's going to play. Weird thing with the Heat recently, we've been playing fantastic. We've won like 16 out of 19, something like that. But the rotation has changed a little bit. Precious Achiuwa has kind of fallen out of the rotation.
Really?
Which is interesting. And KZ Okpala is in. He's been in for the last like 5 or 6 games.
Okay.
So some minor changes there. Spo's just not playing a backup big.
What is the plan there then?
Well, Bam was out for a little while, so what he was doing was you play Kelly most of the minutes. He was playing Kelly most of the minutes at the 5, and then sometimes he was playing Chris Silva a little bit for like 6 minutes.
Oh.
And then you just kind of create minutes at the 5 between Kelly, Andre, and KZ for the rest of the game.
So he's basically doing like a bunch of 2x4s and duct tape to build a center rotation.
Yes, and the weird thing is that Bam being back last night for the first time in about a week and a half, he didn't change anything. He didn't go back to Precious. He didn't go back to Silva or anything. So it's kind of a funky rotation at the moment, and he's definitely experimenting with a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm curious with the Ariza addition, and I feel like the Heat might do one more thing. They have enough money to get any buyout guy, and they still have the Olynyk and Iguodala contracts to trade with. So, yeah, it's a funky time for the Heat because there's some inconsistencies in the rotation, but amazing consistency in the way they've been playing.
Which is encouraging. Like, that's... I feel like you kind of like seeing the end result stay the same, even if the combinations are not.
Very encouraging. And I believe I said this either last week, or not last week because there wasn't a show last week, but the week before. But I am fully back on the Kelly Olynyk train. He has been fantastic for the last 5 or 6 games. And I think he's very valuable to the team. And I kind of would lean towards not trading him at the moment. He has had at least 18 points in 4 of the last 5 games. And last night he had a really all-around game with 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks.
My God.
A real a Draymond Green
blue guy
type
performance from Kelly.
Yeah, a real like a Draymond type stat line. Very happy about that. But yeah, we don't have to talk about the Heat.
Well, actually, there is one part of what you said that I think I would like to harp on, which is that you said the Heat seem to be a team with one trade left to make.
Right.
Now, we at the Tom and Dave Show have been talking a lot about another team that has one trade to make that
Probably
only
more
has
than one.
Probably a lot more than one, but has one trade that they only have 8 days to make.
Yeah. Well, to
Is the
clarify,
Boston Celtics.
they can use it in the summer, but they only have 8 days to use it to be better for this season.
Right.
And that is their $28 million trade exception that they got from the Charlotte Hornets when they with the sign and trade with Gordon Hayward. For anyone that's not really sure how that works, the way a trade exception works is, when you have to make a trade, you have to make sure the salaries match. You can't send out more money than you're taking in, or vice versa.
Right.
A trade exception allows you to kind of skirt around that. So $28 million in a trade exception means you can trade with the exception for someone that is worth $28 million and not have to trade out $28 million of salary from your players. I think it's the largest trade exception in NBA history. It's incredibly valuable. You can get any max guy with it. And the Celtics have the contracts to make it happen really easily. If you need to get someone who's around 31, you can just throw in Jeff Teague or throw in Romeo Langford, and you're there. If you need to get someone that's closer to 40, I think they'd be fine with just throwing in, maybe Tice and Langford, or maybe Tristan Thompson.
Yeah.
It gives you.
That's probably where you get into we're rolling the dice a bit with this.
Yes.
We're taking a bigger swing than we thought we would with the exception.
Right. So it's better to keep it at 28, I'd say, but I don't think anything should stop you from going to 31 or 32, because you can get to that pretty easily by just throwing in one of their endless young players who never play.
Carson Edwards.
Yeah. So, Tom, we wanted to talk a little bit about this. Who are some players you think the Celtics could actually use this trade exception on?
Well, I think when you look at the Boston Celtics roster, obviously they have to fill another wing spot, but they have to fill it with a wing who's, adds a little bit of versatility offensively, maybe can shoot a little, or can shoot pretty well enough to space the floor, can play make in some of those rotations they have where their bench players are on and they don't really have a lot of creativity. Ideally could defend across multiple positions, but you have to get all of these things with the salary matching up to this $28.5 million of trade exception.
It's a puzzle.
It is a puzzle, but I present to you what I think would be the most perfect answer to it, and that would be using the trade exception you got from doing a sign and trade for Gordon Hayward to trade for Gordon Hayward.
Now, tell me more.
Well, sometimes to go forward, you have to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Gordon Hayward probably does not want to go back to Boston. He was pretty snake-bitten in his time there.
Mm-hmm.
And the Celtics probably don't want to bring him back. I mean, they probably would like to have him back. I think we all have heard in the months since he left that their plan was pretty clearly we're going to have Gordon back. And they even declined to trade for Miles Turner. They declined trading Gordon for Miles Turner because they were like, Gordon Hayward will come back. We won't lose him. And then Gordon Hayward was like, actually, I would like to walk and not play for either of you. And then he became a Charlotte Hornet. Now, the Charlotte Hornets, mind you, are a playoff team right now, so I don't actually think this will happen. But I do enjoy bringing up trading for Gordon Hayward because it presents a scenario in which the Celtics are basically in a prison of their own design, because they let Gordon Hayward go for free, and now they're a worse team than they've been for a couple of years, and the biggest weakness is exactly the hole that Gordon Hayward left in their roster. But again, because ultimately I don't really love Boston Celtics fans all the time. But that's a low likelihood one of happening. I'd put the likelihood around 0, not at 0, but close to it.
Right.
But Dave, who would you like to see the Boston Celtics use this trade exception on?
I want to say that's a good starting point. Even if it is pretty unrealistic, it's a good starting point because it shows that Hayward is like the exact type of guy that they could use. I know Tom and I both remarked on the fact that last night against the Jazz, they were. This was in the Tom and Dave Slack. That they were starting Semi Ojeleye, and he started a few times this year. And yeah, I just don't think that's where you want to be at. I don't think as a playoff team in a playoff series right now, I believe the Celtics are in 6th and they would be playing the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think you want Semi Ojeleye in that series playing 30 minutes a game. And
probably guarding Giannis for like a lot of those minutes.
We're kind of, we're at the point where we have a pretty good idea of where these teams are going to end up, a lot of them at least. And, we always get to this point where there are buyers and there are sellers. There are teams that are like, we need to make these types of moves to get better for the playoffs, and specifically for the playoffs. That's why, the Ariza move makes a lot of sense. He's a veteran playoff guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he's plays 15 minutes a game in the regular season and then he plays a lot in the playoffs or something like that.
If that even.
Yeah. So Hayward makes a lot of sense. The main people I were looking at were wings that can play the 3 and the 4 like Hayward, who can also shoot and pass. I mean, those are just good players, but but I was also looking at big men. The Celtics big men rotation has been pretty bad this year. Tristan Thompson hasn't really given them exactly what they've wanted. He's also been hurt a lot. Daniel Tice, I think we've kind of are at the limit of the peak of how good he can be.
Tice is good for what Daniel Tice does.
Yeah. And then Time Lord, I'm forgetting what is his real name?
Robert Williams.
From what I understand from Celtics fans is they really like him in the minutes he's out there, but he can't really play more than 20 to 25 minutes, either because of just getting tired, doesn't really have the durability, or foul trouble. And there's a lot of young big men like that who look great, but they just can't stay out of foul trouble.
Mitchell Robinson last year, same problem.
So I pulled up the most paid players in the league, looking at everyone in this 32 to 28 range. I'm just going to throw some names at you, Tom, and I want you to tell me what you think, okay?
Okay.
First one, Kevin Love.
It's interesting. Make the case.
I think Kevin Love, now here's the thing. Love barely played this year. I have no idea how good he is right now.
Right.
You're kind of gambling.
Yeah.
It's a tough case. Also, these aren't all ones I'm confident about. These are more so ones that I'm let's talk about it, because they're, I think, possibilities.
Okay.
Love does not fit in the timeline with Cleveland.
That's true.
He is still being paid, $30 million a year. I am sure they want him out of. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they like him as a veteran presence, but it sort of feels like it would be good to get him out of there, give more playing time to Jared Allen, give more playing time to, I don't know.
Larry Nance.
To Larry Nance. Yeah. Love can space the floor. He can rebound. And he'd probably be in a similar role to that he was in with the Cavs, where he is pretty much becomes a glorified spot-up shooter, which he's well overqualified for.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how overqualified for it he is right now. But Kevin Love gives them another option that could probably just randomly put up 25 to 30 points in a playoff game.
Helps him on the boards, too.
Helps him on the rebounds. So I like that option for them. What do you think?
I like it a lot. I think it also does help with the playmaking concerns that they're going to have in some of their rotations, because as far as I think, especially Jaylen Brown, but also to a smaller extent, Jason Tatum, have both come in the ability to make plays and distribute and create shots for the other people on the court. They're still not that sort of lead ball handler on a playoff team, probably, in terms of like
No.
initiating offense, doing like point guard stuff, basically. And I think with Love, you create some interesting opportunities to use both of those guys. Cutting off of him, you might be able to sneak some minutes where only one of them is on the court, and or only one of them two or Kemba is on the court, and you're not getting completely run off the court.
Yeah.
But I like it.
And there's a way you can even do it where, because Tice has become a pretty decent shooter, you could go very big and go with Tice and Love out there.
Yeah.
And then you can pretty much play 5 out on offense, which gives so much more room for all these guys to work. I think the only question mark, I think it makes sense fit-wise. I think the only question mark is, we don't really know how good Love is right now.
Yeah. And to be fair, you mentioned him not fitting the timeline in Cleveland. He doesn't exactly fit the timeline in Boston this year either.
No, not really.
But I think 3 years left on a deal.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would be a trade Boston makes for this year, and then is like, okay, how do we get him out of here?
That's a great point.
I could be wrong about that.
And a big problem with a lot of the trades I was coming up with for them.
Yeah.
So next in this kind of weird section of players that are around this price point, I was looking at Otto Porter.
Oh, I like that.
Otto Porter makes just under $28.5 million. So fits right nice and snugly in there. This year he's averaging 10.5 points, 6 boards, 2 rebounds, 38% shooting from 3. Only 22 minutes a game for the Bulls right now. But he's also someone I would love for the Heat to get. He's kind of like he's a solid defender. He can shoot the ball well. He would slot into that 4 spot very well. He can switch with Tatum and Brown. Doesn't really help their rebounding issues, but it gives them another wing that can actually do some stuff out there. But, the ceiling on Porter fitting, I think, is a little bit lower than the ceiling on Love fitting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think it also is kind of like a lower ask that you're going to get from Chicago, especially because they're a guy who, I don't know, he's probably started 3 or 4 games for them this year. So,
something like that.
You could probably get him for a little bit less than you could Kevin Love. But I like the fit. I mean, it's an outside shooter where they might not really have one right now. I mean, they're starting at the 4 right now is Tristan or Shemi. That's an upgrade, at least in terms of how that player fits next to that Kemba, Tatum, Brown rotation.
Right. Yeah. That's what I think as well. Next up here, there's a couple I'm going to skip because we're going to end with 2 that I think are interesting.
Okay.
Next up here is LaMarcus Aldridge. LaMarcus Aldridge, as we found out last week, is looking for a new home. Popovich came out and said we are, working with him right now to find a new team for him.
Right.
He is 5 years old. He's making $24 million this year. Expiring contract. 14 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. Pretty good shooting splits. Pretty bad defender at this point. He used to be a pretty good rim protector, but now with the kind of new agey offensive schemes that kind of target these type of big men, I think he might be played out in a playoff series.
Okay.
But I do think he could probably get you some quick buckets in a playoff series.
Yeah, I think also this is a team that played Enes Kanter significant minutes in the playoffs last year and got good minutes out of him as a guy who comes off the bench and just kickstarts your offense for a couple minutes when, I don't know, your best scorers were off, when it's just Kemba out there and needs somebody to set a pick. You can get good minutes out of that big man who can score but doesn't always defend the best, but will be a problem a little bit.
Yeah. That one's probably the one of these I'm least excited about, but seems possible because he's available.
Yeah.
But also, I think if I'm the Celtics, I want to aim higher than LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yes, especially, and like this probably isn't a thing that's dictating their decision making, but if you think about this, whatever you get here for this trade is what your return is for Gordon Hayward leaving.
That's a good point.
And like, again, I don't think that's really defining the Celtics' approach to any of these trades. I think they're probably just looking like what's out there, what are the deals that we like. But I feel like walking away from the Gordon Hayward experience being like, yeah, well, we got, I don't know, 35 games of LaMarcus Aldridge, who was a little bit past his peak. I feel like that's a tough one to swallow if you're a Boston fan.
Yeah, probably a tough one to swallow if you're a front office too, that you didn't really get that much out of him, which would be an argument to get a guy that might have a couple more years on his deal.
Yes.
Which brings us to the guy that Tom and I have talked about a lot for this position, and there's a lot of buzz on Twitter about it as well, just Harrison Barnes.
Yes.
Harrison Barnes is making $22 million this year. He has 3 years left on his deal. He is averaging 17, 6, and 4. He is shooting pretty much a 50, 40, 80 year. He is a very good defender. He has a ton of experience in incredibly important games.
Yes.
And is on a Kings team that is kind of floundering and is at the point that I like. They're at like that breaking point of like they're not sure whether they keep trying to win or not.
Yes, that is exactly the point I wanted to make about the Kings. They are 2 games back in the win column of Memphis, New Orleans, and OKC. Now, Memphis is in 10th right now because they are 4 up in the loss column on both New Orleans and OKC, and 5 up on Sacramento, which leaves Sacramento officially 3.5 back of that 10 spot. Which, if you're a front office that, like, for whatever reason is hell-bent on getting into that play-in game in this year, is close enough to theoretically look at your team and be like, no, we're going to keep this thing together. We think we got something here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would be the smart thing to do, but I think that a lot of the time NBA front offices do things that we as outsiders look at and say, that would be stupid. And I could see the Sacramento Kings doing the stupid or perceived stupid thing here because they're the Sacramento Kings. I do think the smart thing would probably be to trade Barnes right now because you have a lot of young players on that roster that, like, I don't know the exact timetable, but they're going to start to cost some more money. And you want to keep at least some flexibility for when they do.
Mm-hmm.
And getting Harrison Barnes off the roster basically for, like, free cap would be a pretty nice way to do that.
That would be great. I think the only, like, everything we were saying about Hayward, everything we were saying about Porter, and who was the other guy? Oh, no. Everything we were saying about Hayward and Porter, I really think Barnes does all of those things to an even better degree almost. He's not as good as a playmaker as someone like Hayward, but in terms of how he fits in just perfectly here. Tough part about Barnes, though, and this is the only reservation.
Mm-hmm.
These other guys that we've mentioned, I think you can just get them with the trade exception. With Barnes, I think you might need to pay a little bit.
Well, now here's my question, though. Like, what does paying for Harrison Barnes look like if you're the Celtics? And I think this probably leads into, like, a larger discussion about how much you want to give up if you're Boston for a year that probably, and, like, we can talk ourselves into giving Brooklyn or Milwaukee a series, but probably ends with a loss to one of those teams in round 2, or if you're lucky, round 3 of the playoffs.
Or if they stay where they are right now, a round 1 loss.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But, like, what does giving up extra for Harrison Barnes look like? Like, are we being that precious with Aaron Nesmith? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I'm looking through the roster right now and the money here. I'm gonna read off some names and I want you to tell me who you think the most valuable guy is.
Okay.
Romeo Langford. Aaron Nesmith.
Okay.
Jeff Teague. Grant Williams.
Okay.
Peyton Pritchard.
Okay.
Robert Williams.
Okay. I mean, Rob is Rob is easily the best like trade asset in there.
Yeah.
I think right now, best player is probably like Williams 1, Robert Williams 1, Grant Williams 2, Pritchard 3.
Yeah, it's probably Pritchard's right there.
4. But like in terms of trade pieces, it's probably like Rob Williams 1, like Nesmith 2.
Yeah.
Like Rob Williams is 1, but I think he's above. Like the Celtics would not move him.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, yeah, it's tough to say with Nesmith. I mean, he's 21. He's a rookie. He hasn't played great. He's had a couple okay games out there. But he was the 14th pick. Give him some time to grow.
Yeah.
And then there's Shemi and Carson Edwards.
I feel like.
And I'm just leaving out the big 5 guys. You know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're not trading Kemba or Jason or Jalen, obviously.
Yeah.
The question is, if you're Sacramento, and this is stuff we'll really get into next week on the trade deadline show.
Yeah.
If you're Sacramento, are you going to ask for Smart?
I don't think I don't think Boston's moving Smart. Period. Yeah. I think that's a full non-starter for them.
Yeah,
but also,
I'd agree.
NBA teams doing the thing that we think is stupid to do. NBA teams will ask for that player that is a non-starter all the time.
Yeah.
And like that'll be the thing that prevents a deal getting done. Is like one team just had a cockeyed perception of a player's value and felt like they could ask about trading for him.
Yeah.
But I do like the Harrison Barnes fit on Boston for all the reasons you stated. And also it does preserve a couple of years of having another playable player in there.
Yeah. No, he'll have a couple years. Now I just want to end with 2 big men.
Okay.
3 big men, actually. We can rapid fire these. All right. I want your immediate reaction to the fit of these. You can give a grade or just a comment. Andre Drummond.
It would be hilarious. I don't think it would be it wouldn't be an awful fit. It's weird because like there's a little bit of ick there with Drummond having been like publicly out there available to trade for so long, and there apparently being no market for him. But like if it's you use this trade exception and throw like a second rounder so far in advance that like he might not even be active anymore when it materializes. You got to think about it at least.
Yeah, I think you can think about it. Only issue I think I mean there's all the general issues that people have with Drummond. Yeah. But oh no, I lost my thought. What was I going to say?
He would be an extra player to add to their center rotation that I feel like they're actually pretty like I don't think they're necessarily all that enamored with it, but like they want to keep getting Rob minutes, and Tice isn't the weak point on this team. He may not be like an all-star, but he's not the weak point on the team.
No, Tice is fine for what he's doing out there. I think my point about Drummond was, we have literally never seen Drummond in an important playoff series.
Yeah.
So that's a big gamble there. What if you
I feel like there are a few ways that could go.
Yeah. What if there are, because Drummond is an amazing rebounder, but he is not the type of center who's a good rebounder like an Enes Kanter, who is pretty bad on defense, but boy, can Enes Kanter get like 12 points in like 3 minutes really quickly. Yeah. Off of a bad backup center on the other team.
Yeah.
I don't think Drummond is that guy.
Really?
I just don't see the scoring abilities there. I mean,
yeah.
Drummond's probably averaged more points per game in his career than Kanter has, but when I watch Drummond, I don't see go-to moves or anything. I feel like Drummond gets a lot of his points on offensive rebounds and just alley-oops and stuff like that. And I know there's been frustration for a long time from Pistons and now Cavs fans of the fact that he's like really never developed a decent jump hook or anything like that.
Yeah. And at that point, like,
what do you get him for? Just his rebounding? Like,
because at that point it's like, all right, well, we had to play Cantor last year because Rob wasn't really ready to play in playoff series. Now he is. Now we're carving into his minutes and Tice's minutes to create these Andre Drummond minutes. And we're getting what, like a worse version of what the two of them give us?
Yeah,
or
pretty much.
At the bare minimum, like a better in some ways, but also limited in different ways version of those minutes. Like,
yeah.
It falls apart quickly when you talk about trading for Drummond. And I do think he's underrated. Like, I do think he can give a playoff team something. I just don't know if Boston is that playoff team because their centers do things that I don't really know if Andre Drummond does.
Yeah. I mean, we can get to it another time. I feel like the team that he actually can help a bit is the Nets.
Yeah.
Because there's no pressure there. He would literally be the fifth option.
Yeah.
And he can just eat up all those offensive rebounds.
Like the floor for Drummond as a net is meat shield that we throw at Joel Embiid for 15 minutes a night, like 18.
And then you don't have. I mean, I know it's fun and everyone loves to talk about it, and he's doing pretty well at it. But then you don't have to do a Bruce Brown at the 5 lineup in the playoffs.
Yeah. Like that is a lineup that in the playoffs will fall apart defensively quickly.
Yeah. So 2 more. We'll do these really quick. I want super quick impressions here. Steven Adams.
I would love it.
And then I would also like that a lot. And it gets them out of New Orleans, which I think makes them better. And finally, most expensive guy on this list by far, like in terms of what they would have to give up in addition to the trade exception, and that's Vucevic.
I like it because I don't like if you're trading for Vooch, I think if you're trading for Vooch, you might have to have the do we trade Rob conversation.
You have to, yeah.
And like that probably an uncomfortable one, but like if you're trading for Vooch, you're getting an all-star caliber player that's not really going to change like the composition of your team that much because the Celtics do wind up with the ball in their center's hands a lot. He's going to improve your presence on the boards. I don't think he's going to give you a ton defensively, but what center do the Celtics have that is giving them that right now?
And I mean, you're adding 25 points per game. Like,
yes. To a team that like looks among the most stagnant offensively in the league when their bench units are out there.
And Vooch is a good passer. A good playmaker for a center, so I think that kind of unclogged some things for them.
Absolutely.
But this is an even more exaggerated situation of the Barnes one where you got to give up something. You're going to have to give some picks. I think the price on Vooch is probably the highest it's been in his career because at the moment I would honestly say Vooch is slightly underpaid. He's only making $24 million, and this year he's averaging 25, 12, and 4 on pretty much 50, 40, 90. 50, 40, 85.
The worst Orlando Magic team he's been on.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but they're 13 and 26 right now. Like they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah. So honestly, if I'm Orlando, I have the best player that's played on my team since Dwight Howard.
Right.
That's not hyperbole, right? That's true.
No, that's probably true. Yeah. Like it's been dark days for Orlando.
I have the best player that's played on my team since Dwight Howard. Look, I don't want to trade him, but if I'm going to trade him, I want something good from it. And honestly, this Celtics young player package I don't think looks particularly interesting.
No. Like it's a swing for the fences if you're Boston that you're probably going to have to give up a lot of precious picks for.
And you might need to throw in Smart.
Yeah. But it does make things interesting for this year. Like
although I don't know what Orlando does with Smart.
Yeah. I don't know what Smart does with Orlando either.
Yeah.
The Marcus Smart energy to a team that's clearly not winning most of these games. Like 2 out of every 3, they're losing.
I can't imagine he'd have a good time there.
I'm so tired of Marcus Smart being Marcus Smart. When it's like, all right, man, like we've lost 4 times this week. Like I'm glad that you took that charge with 33 seconds left, but I'm really just trying to get out of here.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I think that wraps up. Unless did you have anyone else?
Let's see.
Sorry, I just kind of went on
I had
a
no.
tear
I'm
there.
actually very glad that you did because those were like basically the names. The only other one I had that like is a similar to Vucevic kind of swing for the fences, but also may not be. Like this is a puzzling one in terms of how much is it actually going to cost them. I had Davis Bertans because I think the Wizards are probably falling out of it.
Yeah.
Like they're in the process of running out of time to make this playoff run. And I feel like he's a name that had been talked about for the Celtics as a trade target even last year.
Mm-hmm.
He gives them a lot of the same things that like Barnes or Hayward. I keep saying Hayward. That was never supposed to be a real trade target. But yeah, like that a Barnes or an Otto Porter would give them. Not a ton defensively, but like he can score, he can shoot. The only other name, and this was the one that I meant as a swing for the fences, was Jeremy Grant. Because that Detroit team is not winning. And I don't know if Jeremy Grant was like we sign and then we trade halfway through the season to someone who is desperate. But he's having a great year on a really bad team.
Here's the question, though. Does Grant want that? Does Grant want to go back to being the third option?
That's a very good point. Because like the whole reason he left Denver was, hey, I can be at number one somewhere else. Why
and
would
he's
I
proven
not?
it. And so, yeah.
He was right.
He was right. And I wonder, I do kind of wonder about that part of it. But that would be, fit-wise, that would be fantastic, especially with like the new offensively aggressive Jeremy Grant.
Yes.
The one who isn't just sitting in the corner shooting threes, but who is making more plays for himself. That would be great.
Minutes where he could be that Jeremy Grant on this Celtics team. Like it's not like he goes to them and is like, oh yeah, well, here I am sitting in the corner for 33 minutes a night. Like we've seen how stagnant those bench lineups look. He could be a lead on that in that part of the rotation. If it's like, yeah, we're going to give Jalen and Jason some time, like a possession or two where they don't have to be driving this entire team.
Right.
That's where the Jeremy Grant minutes are valuable.
And rotationally, you can then try to do the thing where you always have one of Grant, Tatum, and Brown on the court.
Yes.
And that's way easier to do than always trying to have one of Tatum and Brown.
Or even go 2 of 4 between those three and Kemba.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot of players there. I mean, we listed so many players that I wonder if there's anyone that we didn't list that they might end up using this on.
I mean, is Buddy Hield a possibility? I feel like his name has been out there for trades.
Yeah, Buddy's been out there for trades, though, I feel like for like a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that's a possibility. That's a long-term play, though. He's still got 4 years on his deal.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of... Actually, that's kind of funky, though. How do you decide between who's starting at the 2 between Buddy and Smart?
I think it would have to be Smart.
Yeah.
Because like you don't need what Buddy does with that starting unit as much as you need it with that bench unit. I say bench unit singular, but like, as much as you need it in the minutes when one of Tatum or Brown is off the court and Kemba is off the court. You need Buddy Hield there more than you do with the starters. But also you don't need it in the starting lineup as much as you need what Smart does, because Smart can guard a number one guard in a way that Buddy Hield can't. And I don't know. I just think he's really valuable to that starting lineup.
Yeah, no, me too. I think you'd have to bring him off the bench. Yeah, I think it's just Hield is another interesting one. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know, Porzingis.
It'd be interesting.
That one would be interesting. But yeah, I think that's enough on this topic. I hope they use it in the next 8 days.
Same.
But if they don't, I hope they have a really good idea how to use it in the summer. Because if they
I'm sure we'll hear after the fact about how many ideas Danny Ainge had for this.
Yeah, he was really, really close to using it on like, I don't know, who would be a crazy pick.
They were sizing jerseys for Victor Oladipo. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I would bet a lot of money on the fact that we will get a headline, something like that.
Like, oh, we plan to use it on Karis LeVert, and then he was part of the Harden trade, or something like that.
Yeah, we were gonna use it. We were all set to use it on Bradley Beal, but then the Wizards pulled out of it.
Yeah. That might actually be a more fun exercise that we could do later if they don't use it, is just like generate the headlines for what Danny Ainge said he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Great exception.
That would be good. All right. Let us know in the comments if there's anyone else you think we should have considered here. But now we're going to move on to what is quickly becoming one of the more confusing MVP races we've had in quite a few years, I'd say.
Yes.
The person that I would have picked as the MVP about a week ago was Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I think going into the All-Star break, everyone had him at number one.
Who will now be
at worst number two.
Yeah, who will now be out for could be 2 weeks, could be 4 weeks. They really don't know. They have to reevaluate. I think they're reevaluating in a week or two to see what's up with that. If he misses, I'd say 3 or 4 weeks, which will be about, with how often games are played this year. I mean, they're pretty much every team's pretty much playing a game every other night.
Yeah.
That could easily be 10 or 11 games. And then he's already missed 9 games. You add 10 more to that. You're in the I think he's missed too many. That's a third of the season, almost.
What would that be, 19 games?
Yeah, so he would have ended up missing 19
Especially
out of 72. I think that's too many games to miss, and not personally. I kind of don't know how much I buy the argument personally, but media-wise, the way the media votes for this.
Yeah, like if we're predicting, it would definitely count against him in terms of like what people will use as reasons to not pick him. Yes. It's funny though, because like while he's missing time, it's not like the Sixers are exactly falling apart. Like they gave the Spurs the biggest loss in franchise history a few nights ago without him. They beat the playoff-bound New York Knicks last night without Embiid.
Amazing Tobias Harris game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like they're proven to be okay without him. I do wonder how long that'll last. But these first couple of games, they look fine. And if they look fine, maybe Embiid misses a few more games just to be safe. Because you don't want to risk someone like Embiid with his, health issues that he has pretty much overcome, or injury issues, I should say, that he's pretty much overcome. But you don't want to risk it right before the playoffs when you are having your best season.
That's the tough part.
In this whole era.
You've overcome injury issues until you haven't. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we should have seen this coming. Like, we didn't need to run him out there so quickly. God forbid something happens. But it is the kind of thing that can happen in an instant. Where it was like, we'll give him, 20 minutes tonight. See how he plays. And so that's why I feel like it would be better to not risk it with him.
Yeah. Which takes him out of the MVP race. So now we have a bunch of... We're just going to kind of go through all the names that are in this race right now.
Yes.
I think next up, I'd say there's 2 people. And the thing about all of these guys that we're going to name, I am not convinced on any of them, really. Because there's a little bit of a question mark for all of them.
Yeah, there's a reason to not pick everybody.
Now, we should clarify... for anyone who's watching who, I don't know, might be new to following all this stuff, the MVP is not really ever given to the most valuable player or the best player. It is almost always given to the best player who is on one of the 6 best teams.
Don't say who I think you're going to say with this lead in.
Oh, no. Don't worry.
Okay.
So
I have an outburst on camera.
In terms of performance this year, I think... Right after Embiid, the guy who's probably played the best is Jokic.
Yes.
But right now the Nuggets sit in 5th, and they're 2 games out of 4th. They could make it in there. But even 4th feels a little low for an MVP. I almost feel like they got to get to 3rd for Jokic to win.
And, it would be a 4th that's it would be a fourth in a conference where there's really like 3 teams that we think could make the conference finals.
Yeah.
Like if they get to fourth, it would be okay, cool. You're just the top of the definite second tier of teams.
Yeah.
Because like right now it's Phoenix and 2 LAs in some combination or order. Sorry, no. Are they ahead of the Clippers right now?
It's Utah, Phoenix, LA, Lakers, and then Clippers.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if they jump the Clippers, maybe you have a case. Because I don't think anybody's like. I think Phoenix and Utah are gonna kind of run this thing to the end and are gonna try and push for those top 2 seeds. In a way that I don't know if LA and LA will.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if they catch the Clippers, maybe he's got a case. And like, I do think that if you're watching Nuggets games too, he is as big a part of why the Nuggets are good, I think, at least as Embiid.
Oh, yeah.
Like where it's like, all right, yeah, no, like things don't really happen when he's off the court for them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the tough part here is that I think you could make a very good argument that if you took this definition very literally as the most valuable player, that he should win that this year.
Yes.
But that seeding kind of hurts him a little bit. Maybe we'll just go through the teams, actually, because it's always going to be a top 3 or top 4 team. So in the East, I'll go 1 and 1 in each. So in the East, we have the Sixers.
Yeah, that's Embiid.
Their MVP candidate is injured. In the West, we have Utah. There's no MVP candidate there.
I know you're going to say a name.
No, here's the thing. I was just trying to... I don't actually believe he should be like in the race. I was just trying to kind of mess with you after you said anyone who says this is really annoying.
Yeah.
Tom is very fed up with anyone who's trying to put Rudy Gobert in the MVP race.
I am. And the viewers have heard my thoughts on Gobert as an all-star game player, which is a different discussion than an MVP. But still, I would be fed up about it because I know what the discussion's already going to look like. It's like, oh, well, you don't understand. They build so much of their defense around what he's able to give them, both like as a rim protector and then also switching on to smaller players. And he sets all of these screens, which the screen thing is like, find me a center that couldn't run around and set a lot of screens. Like Mitchell Robinson could do 80% of Rudy Gobert offensively right now, probably, at least in the screens. And it's like, yeah, sure, they're the best team in the league right now, record-wise. I am still of the belief that they're going to get washed by an LA team in the second round. But right now, yeah, they're the number 1 seed in the West. They're playing incredibly good basketball. And being probably the best player on that team gets you into the MVP discussion. But I think that's all it should get them because, like, everything about this Utah Jazz team is, oh, yeah, they're a team. It's all the ball movement. It's defending as a team. Like, I just think it runs contrary to a lot of what we've said about Utah. And I also am preemptively annoyed at the way he will be talked about if he does become an MVP candidate. Oh yeah. Well, if Rudy becomes an MVP candidate, the whole debate that people were just having over the last couple of weeks on NBA Twitter of like the nerds versus the people who like watching basketball, we're firing it back up.
It's coming back because the argument for Gobert is going to be very heavily analytics based.
Yes.
And the thing is, on the team, you can't. Conley doesn't really have an argument. Conley's been great, but like
he doesn't have the stats, I don't think.
Yeah, and then Mitchell, I think everyone is a little. There's a lot of people that are like just a little hesitant about like, is Donovan Mitchell that good? Is he better than Devin Booker? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, there's no argument there. Now I'm going to move to 2 in the East. So we've gone through the 2 best teams.
Okay. So now who are the 2 seeds in the East?
We've gone through the 2 best teams, and we have no MVP frontrunner here.
Let's say for the purpose of the exercise, Embiid is right now the frontrunner.
Right.
Until we come across someone with a better case that, like, even with missing time, will push ahead of him.
Good point. Okay, let's say that. Now we got the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay.
weird situation here.
Very.
We have Kevin Durant, who has only played 18 games. He's out of it.
He's not going to be there.
Kevin Durant, I don't even remember the last time he played.
No,
I don't know what his injury is anymore.
I think it's a knee.
It is consistently being reevaluated.
Yeah.
I have a sneaky suspicion. This is complete speculation. Don't act like I actually know anything here. I have a sneaky suspicion that they're just kind of keeping him out.
Yeah. I could see it. Like they clearly don't need to rush him back.
Yeah. Then you have Kyrie Irving, who has missed 11 games.
Okay.
But despite missing 11 games, he's averaging 28, 5, and 6.
Christ.
On 52, 42, 88 shooting. And has been amazing this year.
Yep.
But we should recognize that the media hates Kyrie Irving and will not vote him for MVP.
Yeah. Which is a separate discussion. But yeah, they do not like him.
Yes,
and
they do.
Also so the third MVP candidate, not to cut in here, but it is James Harden,
yes,
who is averaging 25 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists on 48, 38, and 87. And the complicating factor here is that he's only played 26 games as a net, which is probably what's going to keep him out, because I think as good as he's been, and this isn't the media won't vote for him because of the way he handled his exit from Houston. I don't even think that'll be it. I just think it will be a de facto missing time thing where it's you've been playing at an MVP level, but you've only really been doing that for, 25 games of this season.
Yeah. This is the tough one for me because I really think Harden is honestly deserving of being in this top 3.
Yeah.
The way that he has kind of just held the fort down since Durant has been out and shown that the Nets are an elite team without Kevin Durant. And it's Kyrie's been great, but it's not because of Kyrie alone. It is more to do with Harden and his playmaking abilities.
Yeah. And to his credit, everything we said about his game when he was leaving Houston, the whole, he's been in this weird, Morey ball system for how many years? Is he going to be able to play regular basketball again? He's answered all of that.
Oh, yeah. Since Kevin Durant has gone out on February 15th, the Nets are, let me just do a quick little math here. They are 10-1. And in these 11 games, Harden has averaged 28 points, 11 assists, just under 10 rebounds a game on 48, 37, 84 shooting. That's right aligned with his MVP numbers when he was the MVP. I think there could be a narrative that starts to build. I actually think Harden should be, if we're ranking these right now, he should be second of the guys we've mentioned so far, right behind Embiid. Yep. We can put Jokic third for now, until the Nuggets get a little bit better. Because I could see so much of this is narrative. I can see a narrative where KD misses 2, 3, 4 more weeks. Who knows how much time he's going to miss?
Yeah.
And the Nets continue this torrid pace. And maybe with Embiid being out, they overtake the Sixers and become the 1 seed. And someone's responsible for that. And it's probably Harden. And a lot of media people are going to have to somehow convince themselves that Harden isn't the MVP. And
it's going to be so much fun watching the gymnastics that get done if that happens. Just the amount of people that will probably still hold the exit from Houston against him.
Oh, yeah. I just found out today, this was mentioned on the low post, no player has ever won the MVP when they were traded mid-season.
Really?
Yeah.
That actually makes sense. I'm trying to think of the players that got traded mid-season. The list can't be that long of fantastic players.
Yeah, because most guys move in the off-season. So yeah, he would be the first. I am slowly convincing myself that this could happen. So next, I mean, we got to talk about the Lakers. Oh no, sorry, we got to talk about the Suns.
Okay.
Kind of similar to the Jazz, honestly. I just don't know who the candidate is. It's probably Chris Paul, but he doesn't have the counting stats.
No.
You're not winning the MVP averaging 16 and 8.
No.
And too many people don't like Devin Booker's defense to, I think, consider him for this.
You could argue Book doesn't have the counting stats this year either.
True. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
like, he's at what, like 24 point something points this year? Like,
yeah, he's up to 25 now. But
numbers that he had last year.
Yeah. He's up to 25 now, but yeah, it's like 25, 5, and 4.
Yeah, which is like really good. But when you start getting into this MVP conversation, and this is the same thing we said about the All-Star conversation, it becomes a little bit about what you don't have.
Yeah. And if you don't have defense, and I mean, not to make those direct stat comparisons with other young players, but like these numbers are all a little bit worse than what Zach LaVine is doing. Yeah. Zach LaVine doesn't have the second best team in the NBA. But I just think that there's a lot of play. The threshold for being a 25 point per game scorer, I think, has gone down just a little bit. And this isn't like it's too easy to score now. It's just because offenses with 3-point shooting, how every team has become so much better at 3-point shooting, the floor of scorers just has gone up a lot.
Yeah.
I saw some stat that in like 2011, 2012, there were only like 15 guys who averaged more than 20 points per game. That's probably at like 30 this year.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. So, yeah, I don't think 25 points per game like stands out as much as it used to. So, yeah, there's no Suns candidate really.
I think we also we attribute like 25 point a game prestige to a lot of players that don't actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that kind of leads to cheapening it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm fine saying there's no Suns candidate. Like, I think they really are a case of like, we caught fire at the end of last season, and then Chris Paul came in and like kind of lifted all boats here, and now we're just a better team than we were. I'm fine saying that, and I'm sure people in Phoenix aren't going to have too many gripes about that, because like, y'all are better than you've been for how many years? Like, at least 12?
Yep.
13, 14? Like,
we will get probably an annoying Chris Paul MVP case.
Yes.
That's entirely analytics based, which I would slightly support, but
I would at least
not
listen
fully.
to it in a way that I wouldn't listen to the Gobert case.
Yeah.
But for the time being, let's say there's no Suns candidate, and Embiid's probably still the front runner in this exercise.
So then we got the Bucks.
Yeah.
3 seed in the East. And we got Giannis, who is averaging like 30, 12, and 6. And has been amazing recently. And
Giannis is having what I think is just a prime Shaq season, statistically.
Yeah. And they've won like 9 of their last 10, something around that.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a fun case of literally the only reason Giannis isn't higher is because he just won the last 2.
Yeah. And also, he's won the last 2 for being the best player on a team that's like, I mean, last year they were the number 1 seed all season. Like, there was no doubt about it. They were on pace for, I think, 60 wins before the shutdown.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, he won it because not only was he so good, but his team was so good. And then the year before, were they a 1 seed 2 years ago as well?
They were.
Yeah, so I feel like there's going to be some sort of logic games that get played there where it's like, well, we can't vote him MVP when his team finished 3rd. And that probably isn't right, but I feel like some people will say it. But I do, and it's funny because if the next candidate we bring up is who I think it is, then we're going to have this talk twice in a row. But I do think there's some voter fatigue around Giannis too, where it's like, all right, he's won the MVP 2 years in a row. He's doing statistically the same stuff he's done for 2 years. only his team is worse.
Yeah. That's the big thing. The Bucks being a little bit worse is going to really hurt his case, even if he is very deserving of being in that top 5. Yeah, I don't really have a ton to say about Giannis. I do think the thing that hurts him the most is voter fatigue. I think if the Bucks were in first and he was doing this again, we would be like probably having this conversation. But I do wonder. I mean, shouldn't. It
can
shouldn't.
I propose something to you?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if the Bucks somehow, some way, leapfrog the Nets? Like in this season, where we are so sure that the Nets are the best team in the East, and they're this buzzsaw that's won, I think, 13 of 14 now, and Harden's playing out of his mind. Kyrie's having like a career year under the radar. They're doing it without Durant and still firing on all cylinders. What happens if a like pretty Giannis-centric team in the Bucks winds up finishing ahead of them? Do we have the conversation then?
I think we have to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis ends up top 3 in this.
I wouldn't either.
Um,
and I do think a lot of it is because of what I think you said, where it's like the field is kind of, everybody is stumbling somewhere.
Yeah.
And at some point, Giannis is going to be one of the only people with like a pretty bulletproof case left.
Yeah. His case, if you are just thinking individual season, he has one of the better cases we've talked about. The only downsides here are the past. It's he won the last 2, and I don't think people should consider this when talking about MVPs, but they are going to consider the last 2 playoff losses.
Oh, absolutely. Now, here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at our mini list right now. I'm assuming he's not in front of Embiid yet.
Who, Giannis?
Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
Is he in front of Harden?
Yeah, I think he is.
I think he is.
Harden is just going to be way too hurt by those Houston games.
Yeah, and by the perception of being on this sort of, and I hate that I'm going to use the word, but super team.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, well, you joined 2 All-Stars. How are you the most valuable player?
Yeah.
Is he in front of my name? I'm blanking.
Jokic?
Is he in front of Jokic?
Yeah, he should be. They're actually putting up very statistically similar seasons, and Giannis's team is the better record. So I feel like that makes sense.
I think he should probably be in second right now with like an asterisk for if Embiid misses too much time.
Yeah. So now we move to we got to talk about the Lakers.
We're going to do the LeBron discussion.
LeBron James has missed 1 game this year.
He sees the opening.
At age 36.
Year 18.
He is averaging 26, 8, and 8.
Yep.
Just normal LeBron season. Same LeBron season we've had for the last 10 years, pretty much. He is shooting 50, 37 from 3, which is pretty impressive, and around 70% from the line. LeBron's never really been penalized for his free throw shooting before in MVP discussions. I don't think it matters. The argument would be that LeBron has held the fort down as Davis has missed so much time.
Yeah.
Davis has missed 17 games now. And like we talked about at the beginning of the season, Lakers have an amazing team. We both picked them as the easy, like, best team in the league. This was pre-Harden trade.
Yeah.
But you take out Davis out of that equation, it is just a lot of guys who are good, but not special.
It's a lot of guys who are good in, like, very specialized and diminished roles.
Yes.
Where it's like, all right, yeah, Marc Gasol is great as, like, a guy who's quarterbacking our defense and will throw some passes here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like KCP is great as a guy who will guard and stand in the corner.
That's a lot of guys on their team.
That's true, yeah. Which, to their credit, they knew what they had to put around LeBron. But I do think, like, we should have the discussion about LeBron. Because there's a chance, and obviously I don't think either of us thinks this will happen, but there's a chance that they still wind up with the number 1 seed in the West. Like Utah, up until last night, was on a bit of a slide, like a mini slide. But they're only 2.5 up on LA and Phoenix. The Lakers are technically tied with the Suns, although they're back in the loss column. So like, there's still a chance that they wind up with the 1 seed, or a better chance of them winding up with the 2 seed in a year where Anthony Davis has missed how many games now?
17.
Yeah, like 17 games without him, and they're still humming.
Yeah.
And I think the case for LeBron kind of winds up being like this Frankenstein of the cases that everybody else has, where it's like, oh, okay, well, he's on this team that he had another star player with, and that guy went down and they're still doing it. That's the Harden case. Like, you watch their games and he's so responsible for them being as good as they are. That's the Jokic case. And it's like, he has everyone else's argument, with the exception of probably Giannis, because ultimately, like, Giannis is twice the defender LeBron is right now. I'm going to get yelled at for, well, I won't get yelled at for that, but like, please nobody save the clip of me saying that. But yeah, like, Giannis is playing more defense than LeBron is right now. But I do think LeBron at this point has an argument that, like, the reasons everyone else should win it are not things that will disqualify LeBron, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I think the other important thing to consider here is the narrative in LeBron's favor is the media badly wanting to give him one more MVP before, he goes out. And it does feel like in this year where we are all, I think a lot of people are having this MVP discussion post All-Star break, and everyone is just like, who are we supposed to give it to now that Embiid's hurt?
Yeah.
And yeah, it might just end up being LeBron.
Yeah, like, I feel like with LeBron and Giannis, both of them, it's like, are we really going to back into this? I feel like it's almost like we're all looking for someone else to give it to.
Yeah.
And also, quick note before we move on, I get that this isn't the best LeBron season ever. I don't think that should exclude him from MVP consideration. Like, if you're a person who talks about basketball and you're saying, like, oh, well, he shouldn't get it for having his 9th best season ever. Like, did he get it for having his 8th or his 7th or his 6th? Like, at what point? Like, 2011 LeBron was probably one of the best LeBrons that's been out there. He didn't get it.
Yeah.
So, like, at what point does this, oh, well, it's his blank best year discussion just kind of nonsense?
Yeah.
You can be the most valuable player in the league without being the most valuable version of yourself that's ever been there.
That's a great point, and I think I just end this kind of reiterating something you said before. If the Lakers end up in first, I think he gets it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because it's a little bit of a hurdle to get there right now, and they would need to play really well, and the Jazz would need to stumble a little bit. But yeah. All right. So now we're in to the territory of, like, all right, what are we supposed to... I'll save one of these teams for later. Now we're in the territory of, like, all right, what are we supposed to do with these guys? Tom, what are we supposed to do with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in the MVP race?
Who was the third name there?
Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
I don't know what the case is. Like, they're both fantastic. They're both also on a 4 seed in the West with each other. I don't know. Like, I think they definitely have a case.
The better case is definitely for Kawhi.
They both have a case.
Yeah, the better case is Kawhi's.
Yeah.
Kawhi is average. Kawhi has only missed...
he's missed 8.
Yeah, that's pretty good for him.
Yeah, but that's like, I feel like that's right on the cusp of, like, well, he's getting a little low.
Yeah, but if we're at the end of the season and he's played 64 out of 72, that's fine, I think.
Yeah, that won't be the thing that discounts him.
He's at 26, 6.5 boards, 5 assists.
Yeah,
steal and a half a block. Really close to 50, 40, 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know. I actually maybe this shows a sign of what I actually think about this. I have trouble making the case for him though. Fourth seed, his stats aren't eye popping.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone still thinks the Clippers are underperforming a little bit.
Yeah. Which I think might just be an issue of like them being more focused on the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or at least just being like, no, we're just trying to get ourselves right for that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with your perception of them underperforming.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In their last 12 games, they've gone. What's that? I think they've gone 4-12, 4-8. I mean, in their last 12 games, they're kind of in a skid. Like any random guy on their team seems to always be injured.
Yep.
Right now, Ibaka and Beverly are out. Yeah, I don't see how this case ends up being made unless Kawhi just kind of goes on one of his tears. Paul George has very little case, I'd say.
The Kawhi case almost winds up looking like closer to like Dame's case.
Yeah.
Or Jokic's, where it's like, all right, yeah, they're not that good, but imagine how bad they would be if Kawhi wasn't here.
That is exactly where I wanted to go next, if you're okay with jumping to the Blazers.
Yeah.
Dame has a very interesting case, I think. The missed games argument isn't there for him. He's like missed like 2 or something.
Yeah.
He's averaging 30 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 45, 39, 94 shooting.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone loves Dame. You got to think narratively, though, the Blazers would have to go on a nice run and be in 4th or 3rd.
I think Dame, right, like as it sits right now, he's having a perfectly nice first team All NBA season.
Yes.
Like if you stopped it today, him and Harden is probably the backcourt.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can debate Embiid versus Jokic, LeBron versus Giannis, but that's probably backcourt.
Well, I'd say you also got to consider Curry.
Yes. But in considering Steph Curry, what is the case for him over Dame at this point?
No, there's really no case, actually. Curry was
closer to being a home court advantage in the first round team than the Warriors are to being out of the play-in tournament.
Right. Yeah.
So they're exactly as close. But
there's very little Curry case. But what you just said in regards to Kawhi with Dame, that's true. And the argument goes back to the Harden argument. It goes back to the LeBron argument. Dame has been absolutely exceptional this whole season with the second best player out.
Yeah.
CJ just came back last night. And I do wonder if, with CJ back, as they slowly get their pieces back together and they developed a really nice rhythm over this last month or so.
Yeah.
Maybe you can hop up to 4. You're only 2 games back.
Oh, yeah.
If the Clippers keep getting injured and kind of are stumbling a little bit, you can get there, but you have to jump over Denver, who has just as much motivation to get there. It's tough.
It's not going to be easy, no.
Yeah. The Dame argument, I don't know if...
I think he has an outside chance right now, but he would need to go, nuclear to even finish top 3.
Yeah. So just kind of going through some of these other guys. Tom, we got your MVP pick for the 2020-21 season, Luka Doncic.
You want to talk about an MVP case that'll probably get made by annoying people. If the Mavs wind up in, if they sneak into that 6th seed and it's for all the talk of the Mavs missing the playoffs, they actually made it so that they were high enough that they didn't have to play in the play-in tournament. That'll probably get said if it happens, and I won't agree with it because ultimately this team has underperformed this year.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be just making excuses for that to get Luka into the MVP discussion. He's fantastic, but his team isn't good.
Yeah, I agree. I think The argument for Luka would literally just be riding on his team would be awful without him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like it would, but look above him. Like Dame has that. Harden has that. LeBron has that. Kawhi has that. Jokic has that.
Yeah, I do think maybe Luka has it to a slightly higher degree, but yeah, it is like not a perfect. It is not really a unique argument. Luka's having a great year. He's averaging 28, 9, and 9 pretty much on good efficiency.
Yeah, it's insanely good.
But yeah, it's just the record's not there. So I don't think we need to spend that much time on that. And very similarly, it's not there for Steph Curry. Warriors are currently in 9th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's enough of an argument to knock you out of any discussion here.
I think we've had our fun with the real talk of Steph as an MVP. We can shift to just let's enjoy this incredible season where like one man tries to drag this team to any sort of success.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of running out of people to talk about, and we have still decided that Embiid is in first, despite the fact that he is probably going to miss too many games.
Yes, I feel like we have decided Embiid is in first, but like a fading first.
Yes. So some guys on the outside here. I'm going to talk just a couple seconds about the
Jimmy Butler case.
Jimmy Butler case for MVP. Now, here's the thing. Jimmy has missed 14 games.
However,
I mean, in those 14 games, though, the Heat are 4-10, which means that in the games that he has played, the Heat are 18-8. Since Jimmy has come back at the end of January is when that stretch that I just talked about at the top of the show has happened, where we've won pretty much 16 out of 19, or it might be 17 out of 20 at this point, and we've had the best or second best defense in the NBA during that stretch. The Heat have climbed themselves out of the 7-14 hole that they were in, to now be 22-18. Actually have a little distance. It's not a lot of distance, but like I think it's like a game. Let me see. They have a nice little game cushion over Charlotte in 5th.
Yeah.
The like situation in the East where 4th through 10th was separated by like one game is kind of dying a little. More separation has been created.
It's dying and not the way I expected it to. Like,
what do you
Indiana feels like a team that's falling off. Toronto is somehow falling off.
Yes, both of those have been very disappointing. Toronto at least has the excuse of a lot of their guys missing time for COVID recently.
That's true.
But in the last... this is a fun stat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so the Heat have won 5 in a row.
Yep.
But the last 10 games that Jimmy Butler has played, because he missed 2 with a little ankle thing right before the All-Star break, they're 10-0. In that time span, Jimmy averaged 25, 9, and 7 on 53% shooting, 84% from the line. His three-point percentage is irrelevant because he didn't take them, and shooting around 85% from the line. I got to say, just as someone who has watched all of these games, the level of him putting the team on his back over these last 15 to 20 games is really unlike a lot of things I've seen before. He has fully embraced the kind of mode he was in the playoffs. A lot of times Jimmy in the regular season, especially in these 2 Heat seasons, takes a little easy sometimes. Doesn't really think of himself as a regular season player.
Right.
He has completely turned that perception around, I think, because he understands that the team is 1,000 times better when he's playing, whether it's the playmaking, the getting to the line, the great chemistry he has with Duncan and Kelly Olynyk on the court. setting screens for them, getting them open for threes, stuff like that. And he also led us to a 4-game win streak without Bam.
That's big.
I think now here's the Jimmy case. The Jimmy case is he can't miss any more time.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah.
Which is difficult because just last night he kind of turned his ankle and now he's questionable.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day thing. So he might miss a game tonight. The case would have to be that stretch I just mentioned over the last 10 games. That's got to go for the rest of the season.
Like the Heat just need to be a buzzsaw?
The Heat need to win like 80% of their games. Which is probably won't happen, but they do have the second easiest schedule in the rest of the league. So it's not crazy. But
there's at least a run of some sort in there.
This run that they're on right now would have to be continued for the rest of the season. The Heat would have to get into the top 3.
Yeah.
And I think Jimmy's counting stats right now are a little, like for the whole season, are like 22, 8, and 8, which are good, but I feel like a little
low.
A little low on the points to be an MVP. Which I find annoying. But if he can get a 24, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Because you're near 24-point triple-double. Near 24-point triple-double with elite defense, and the Heat are in 3rd. I think Jimmy should at least be in top 5 consideration.
I think you would have a case there.
I'm not saying he should win. I'm saying top 5.
No, I think that's a reasonable take.
Well, wait, Tom, we got to trade.
Oh?
Are you ready for this?
I'm sure I'm not, but yeah, let's go for it.
Houston is trading PJ Tucker.
Where?
Rodion Kurucs and the Bucks 2022 first round pick.
I didn't know they had that.
Back to Milwaukee.
Whoa!
For DJ Augustine, DJ Wilson, and a 2023 unprotected first round pick.
Huh. That's kind of funky. I did not expect Milwaukee to be in for PJ Tucker.
Me neither. PJ's been linked to a million teams over the last 2 weeks, but not Milwaukee, I feel like. Wow. I'll have to do some more processing on that. But
also, I do think that this trade makes an interesting assertion about the
we got another trade
players with 2-letter first names, because it is basically stating that one PJ is worth 2 DJs.
That's a good point, Tom. There's another part to this trade.
Oh?
Milwaukee is trading forward Torrey Craig to Phoenix.
Huh.
No information.
I like that,
no information yet on what Phoenix is doing.
I do like Torrey Craig in Phoenix.
Yeah, that's they have too many guys like that. They are hoarding all the guys like that.
Phoenix is officially the number 1 team in the league in terms of just guys.
Yeah.
They have more guys than everybody.
Just guys that can play. Okay, Torrey Craig's been pretty bad this year, actually. I didn't realize that. But and Torrey Craig's averaging 2 points a game this year.
What are his minutes like?
He's averaging 11. I feel like he probably plays more in Phoenix.
He should probably.
Very curious how. I can't imagine Craig was worth much for Phoenix. Maybe it's just going to be a pick sent back. But yeah, I mean, we can talk about this for a couple seconds just because I feel like the MVP race. Did we decide on that top 3 then? Are we confident on it?
Right now, I'll say it's like Embiid, LeBron, Giannis. I think. Right now, at least.
Yeah. I think, and it's all the caveats we talked about. Like,
yeah.
Embiid misses too much time, he's out of it.
Yeah.
LeBron gets to the 1 seed with the Lakers. He's probably winning it.
That's a wrap.
Giannis maybe gets to number 2. Could be a wrap.
I think this is also going to be a year where, like, someone like Giannis could finish second by just having a ton of second place votes and like where like Harden has a lot of first place votes, but then like a lot of eighth place votes.
Yes.
Or like LeBron has a lot of firsts, but then a lot of fifths.
Yes. Harden's the X factor, I think.
Yeah.
Because he's very well deserving. It's just about whether the media would want to.
Yeah, it's like how much did
reward
I don't
him.
know chucking the ball at Christian Wood's knees 2 months ago mean to us?
And I've heard this said on a couple things recently. The other part of the Harden argument is, the Rockets have lost 17 straight games. This team isn't that different from the team that Harden was running.
No.
And it is just kind of showing the. It is different. They have Oladipo, they have Wall, but
yeah. But theoretically, that shouldn't be like one of the 3 worst teams in the league.
Yeah. But Christian Wood actually returns tonight.
Sweet.
I actually didn't realize this. Their 17-game skid started exactly when Christian Wood got injured.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah. It makes sense, but it's also like, I didn't think he was that valuable to the point where you literally can't win without him.
Yeah, you didn't think he was the X factor.
Yeah.
In this way, at least.
So yeah, that about wraps up. I agree with Tom on the top 3 there. I might put, LeBron should be second. But yeah, I don't really have that much else. I'm just kind of waiting to see whether we're going to find out how Phoenix is involved in this trade.
Yeah.
No real update from Woj yet. But let's think. I'm going to quickly look up the minutes that DJ Wilson and DJ Augustine have been playing for Milwaukee. Because I know Augustine's played a bit.
I don't think DJ Wilson's been playing all that much, but I do think Augustine's had a pretty consistent role.
Yeah. So Augustine's played in 37 of their 40 games. DJ Wilson's only played in 24, and he's only about 9 minutes a game.
Okay.
Augustine, not great this year, 37% shooting, 38% from 3, but only averaged 6 points a game. Probably didn't provide what they wanted. You're pretty much getting a better version of what you wanted from DJ Augustine out of Bryn Forbes. So that makes sense for them. DJ Wilson, I remember at the beginning of the year having a little bit of momentum around him as like, he could be a sneaky good bench guy for them. Hasn't really turned out. He's averaging 4 points a game and has only played in 12 games. You're trading for PJ Tucker, who has looked just awful this year, but you got to think that part of it is...
He doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. I don't believe the stat lines for Tucker. Tucker's been an incredibly consistent player for the last 5 years. It doesn't make much sense for him to all of a sudden get that much worse.
Yeah. No, I think it's just a matter of like, well, we were a finals contender for 5 years, and now we're a number 1 pick, possibly.
Yeah. So I would bet that PJ is in that final 5, right?
I think one of PJ or Brooke. I don't think you can play both.
That's
actually
true.
Probably could, just because like PJ offensively is going to be stand in the corner and do nothing.
You could do the Drew Middleton, PJ, Giannis, Brooke lineup.
That actually sounds pretty nasty.
Yeah. If PJ can be PJ of a year ago or 2 years ago.
What's up?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying if PJ can be the PJ of a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, like I think he still has value to a playoff team.
Yeah. I do wonder, though, it's kind of funny when these trades happen right after each other, when it's not the trade deadline. I wonder if Milwaukee was in the Ariza sweepstakes but couldn't make it happen.
That is true.
Feels like very similar.
It feels like dominoes falling.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on PJ Tucker's impact on the Bucks. I think that's a fun trade.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at how many other parts are in there. They're getting Rodions Kurucs, who I believe Houston got in the Harden trade.
And they got him from Cleveland, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't really play for them, so that's just kind of salary filler. Um, and yeah, now Houston has just like another couple young guys to throw out there. I mean, the
They
lineups
got
that
a rotation player for their playoff push, where or like a starting slash closing caliber player where they didn't have one before.
yes,
The question is just like, when does this shortening of the rotation come back to bite them?
yes, exactly. I think that's a big problem here. Or not a problem here. Sorry, I meant the opposite of that. I think that's the positive here. Is that we talked about a while in our original preseason predictions how we could get to 3 players for the Bucks crunch time, but couldn't figure out who the other 2 would be. I at least think that PJ is probably one of the other 2 now.
Yeah, I think you maybe have your closing lineup set if you're Milwaukee, actually.
Yeah, and you can always play a little bit smaller. Maybe you don't play Brook. You play Giannis at the 5, and then you throw out Connaughton or what's the other guy?
Dante.
Yeah, Dante.
Yeah. But no, I think it's a good trade for Milwaukee. Gives them like just another move, basically.
Yeah.
I'm big on moves. Just like what can we do when another team has identified a weakness that we now have to account for?
Yes, and we have 2 teams today, I think, that have made moves. That 2 teams in the East, the 3rd team and the 4th team in the East, who both got guys who will probably be thrown at Kevin Durant if they are faced against him in a playoff series.
Well, and Milwaukee got a guy that like could have been thrown at Giannis in a playoff series.
Yeah.
Because like Miami might also have to throw Ariza at Giannis a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But like for Milwaukee, like PJ Tucker on your team is a hell of a lot better than PJ Tucker on like, I don't know how Brooklyn would have made it work, but like PJ Tucker on Miami or something.
Oh yeah. It almost feels like, all right, we're getting, we're going to take one of the guys who would actually be pretty valuable against us.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You got anything else?
I do not. I want to see if there's any update, or there seems to be some sort of update here. Woj tweeted, essentially Milwaukee will likely move back a few spots in the 2021 draft to use an early second round Rockets pick, and Houston was able to push back the 2022 first round pick they previously owned to the 2020. I don't know what that means. Mark Stein just tweeted, the Bucks put themselves in a hole with the unraveling of their would-be deal for Bogdan Bogdanovic, but swinging a trade today for PJ Tucker to add Tucker's veteran know-how to what Drew Holiday brings is a good response. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, that Bogdan thing was weird.
That was weird. I kind of forgot that happened until I just read that again.
That has big, like, thing we look back on in a couple years and forget happened, but wound up having huge implications written all over it.
Yes. Especially, I mean, how's Bogdan doing? Not great.
Actually,
He's been,
like
been mostly injured.
I don't actually think he's been that good for the Hawks.
No, he has only played 15 games.
Right.
And in those games, he's averaging 8 points.
Well, was he starting those games? Like, I think they're starting Herter a pretty good amount of the time.
He wasn't even starting those games.
That's a weird signing.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look great. Maybe it looks better next year if he's a little healthier. But that's about all I have. Well, the Hawks have very quietly won 4 games in a row and are back at 500.
And back in, I think, the 6th seed in the East now.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, they're 7. They're like a half game back of Boston. The playoffs as of right now would feature a Sixers-Knicks matchup.
Oh, that would be...
I would really want that to happen. A Hawks-Nets matchup, which is exactly what we wanted earlier in the season.
Yes.
Just 100. Maybe we could maybe go for the over on 300 points. Maybe.
probably multiple times.
Yeah. Then a Bucks Hornets matchup, which
That
I
one
mean,
feels like a thing where like
actually, sorry, it's
we
Bucks
all-
Celtics.
okay.
Also doesn't feel great.
Bucks I think Bucks Hornets feels a lot more like, okay, this was nice. Like you did a good thing this year, Charlotte. Come have a cookie and then get rolled for 4 games.
Yeah.
Because the adults are talking now.
And then we got Miami Charlotte at 4-5 matchup right now, which
That one could actually be fun.
yeah, makes me a little nervous. We lost to the Hornets earlier in the season.
They're a bad matchup for you guys.
Yeah, no, they have too many guards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, would much rather play Boston. Well, actually, I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't say that. I don't know who I'd rather play.
I think I'd rather play Charlotte, but it's not a definitive would rather play Charlotte.
Yeah. Then in the West right now, we'd look at a Jazz Mavericks matchup, which could end in a very funny way.
Wait, Jazz Mavs?
Yeah.
Okay. That could be hilarious, and I hope it is.
Spurs Suns, which feels like something the Spurs aren't entirely out of.
No.
All of these matchups are tough. Blazers Lakers. That one's
A
tough.
rematch of last year.
Yeah. And then another rematch of last year. We would have a Clippers Nuggets first round series.
I do love that 3-6-4-5 matchup.
Yeah, those would be great. And it would be very funny to see the Jazz lose in the first round.
I think that Suns Spurs series also has feels like it could be this year's version of last year's Jazz Nuggets series.
Yes.
Where it's like, all right, yeah, we weren't expecting too much, but oh my god, this series became incredible.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, playoffs start in like a month and a half, I think.
My god.
They're coming soon.
That's nuts.
Trade deadline is in 8 days. Tom and I will be live streaming on trade deadline day to talk about it.
The NBA event that started this entire channel.
Yes. So yeah, I hope everyone tunes in for that. I don't know yet if we'll be doing a Wednesday show next week or if we'll just do the Thursday show. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it and it'll be out on social.
Yes. So yes, thank you everyone for watching. It was a long one tonight, so glad you stayed in with us. Yeah, you got anything, Tom?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Well, good night, everyone.
Thanks for coming.